Gridiron Warrior Podcast is built for strength and football coaches who want to run the best possible programs for their athletes and their communities. Each episode delivers simple, practical coaching advice that transfers straight from the weight room to the field. No theory, no fluff, no fancy words, just real-world strategies from coaches that are living it. So you can build stronger, faster, more durable athletes at any level. In episode 1, Coach Michael Gragg shares how he develops freshman football players, separating developmental lifts from varsity lifts, tackling the unique challenges of young athletes, and creating buy-in through competition and culture. Perfect for high school and small college coaches who want actionable steps that they can implement tomorrow with their freshman and developmental programs. It's going to be a great one. Stay tuned for the end too, because he's got some really good challenges that he throws out there to his guys. You may want to steal some of those.
All right. So we're here. This is the inaugural, first episode of the Gridiron Warrior Podcast. And I have Coach Michael Gragg on. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
What's up, everybody? I'm Michael Gragg. I'm currently the head strength coach here at Harding University. We're a Division II school in Arkansas. Kind of have, most of the major sports, and I oversee everybody. Work day-to-day mainly with football and basketball, and then I oversee our 4 graduate assistants and the development of programs for all of our other teams. Before I came to Harding, I actually played football here at Harding from 2013 to 2017. During my undergrad, I did my first strength and conditioning internship at a high school in Nashville, Tennessee called Battleground Academy. I think one of probably the best strength and conditioning programs at the time in the country. Just learning basically how to slow roast athletes, learning what it takes to take an athlete from 7th grade through an elite program when they're a senior and how to do those things. And then, when I finished playing football, I went to TCU as an intern and then became a GA there, worked with swim and dive, track and field, and football when I was a GA. But when I was an intern, I got to work with all of their sports there. Got to learn from a really, really good group of coaches while I was there too. Then moved on to Northern Arizona, where I was the assistant, worked with football there, and was the head strength coach for men and women's basketball. Now I've been back here at Harding for going on 5 years, almost 5 years. And real quick on the front end, I want to give a shout out to my wife and my family. Without a doubt, couldn't have done it, especially in the years as an intern, as a GA, without the hard work that she put in behind the scenes. She didn't get enough credit for that. Now I've got 2 awesome kids now too, that really make just kind of changes things. Changes the perspective on how you treat athletes, who you see them as, and how you want to treat them. So that's a little bit about me.
Man, I love it. And, people always ask, young strength coach, what's the best piece of advice? It's find your ride or die, right? It's find that person. Yep. How my wife carried me through first couple of years of working full time because I wasn't making as much as I am now. And, first time we moved in together, she said, "Why is your bank account red? I've never seen a red bank account before." I said, "Don't worry about it. It works. It works.
Yeah.
We'll find a way." And so I guess one more quick, because I love that. Love the family stuff. What keeps you involved and why do you love football? Because it's, whether you're a football coach, whether you're a strength coach, it is not an easy lifestyle. I mean, there are very few people that are the Nick Sabans of the world that are making millions and millions and turning it into a lifestyle. But you've carved a great life for yourself and you're able to do it in something you love in the sport of football. So what is it about football specifically that you love?
Yeah, I think specific to the job that I have now, it's the fact that I played football here. The coaches that are here now are the same coaches. A lot of them is when I played here, and so I've heard a very consistent message on, if you're here, we want to develop you into the best husband and father that you can be, and that's not just words say. That's how our coaches live too. And so what keeps me loving what I do every single day is the fact that I get to live that out and be that example for our players every single day. That makes it easy to put all the time that's required to be great as a strength coach for our football guys, but I love football, specifically football. I mean, I grew up playing it, of course, but just the pure team aspect and the reach that you get to have with so many different people with so many different backgrounds. It's very unique to football, with basketball, most guys have been growing up kind of with the same crew their whole life. Other sports like baseball or softball that I work with, there's not as much diversity, but with football, you get guys from so many different backgrounds that do have to come in and kind of unify around something bigger than themselves or their background. And so just the pure team element, I love being part of a team, and so getting to do that around these guys, a place that I played for, coaches that I played for, it adds an extra special layer of value to me in my life.
I'm with you on the team thing too. It's something I tell our guys here. You're never going to get this in the same way ever again. You're going to graduate, you're going to leave here. You might work in a department, you might work with a staff, you might, you're a team, but it's not the same thing. And you're right with basketball, like those kids, for the most part, kind of work together, grow up together, kind of play together, especially in the high school level. And then, so it's like, that's different. That's with your friends. You show up on a football team, you might have a couple friends prior to joining the team, but you have to get 22 people minimum to work together and operate and play and handle roles. And there's so many different life lessons, right? Is when you're not a player, when you're not a starter, you still have to do a great job and do your role to the best of your ability. And that's hard for some people, but there's a lesson in it. There's so many lessons that you can pull out.
Right. Another thing about football that I think about is like, we actually have an off season time, like right now I'm working with our basketball program in season, and they practice nearly every day after we left. So I have to consider everything that they're doing in practice along with what we're doing in training. And that's just part of the art and science of it. But with football, like there's dedicated times where, they're with me basically 8 hours of the week in their off season. And I love that. I love being able to stand in front of those guys, and kind of set the direction for our off season, and see them execute it while our coaches are on the road recruiting or whatever. There's just something to that part of having, a really good vision and making sure all the pieces connect in a football season that I really do enjoy.
I love it. Let's get into what I brought you in here for. And I'm bringing in guests, and I talked about this with you before the show, but trying to bring in targeted guests about something that you're really good at least in my opinion, right? I think a lot of people would agree with me. Well, let's talk about getting the freshmen in on campus and talk about developmental lift and when somebody first shows up, whether they came from IMG Academy and they were training for X number of years, or they've never seen a weight room before in your life, right? They get to you. What do you do with them? Give us the whole from when they show up till
for sure
whatever point you decide they don't need to be on the freshman/developmental lift anymore. They can move on to the next level, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I think it starts before they actually show up. To me, it's important to see our recruits, see the guys that we want to bring in, because that's when the relationship begins, is during the recruiting process. So that when they first show up on campus, I'm not just this new coach that's yelling at them and telling them exactly what to do and have extreme discipline and, all these types of things, So I think it starts in the recruiting process, making sure they know you. And then after signing day, be able to communicate with them exactly what the expectations are when they're not on campus, so that when they do get on campus, it's a lot easier to have those critical conversations and continue to build a relationship, and then, it's different at every level, but for us, our freshmen don't come in until fall camp in August. And we've had some this past couple of years, like maybe 2 or 3 that'll come in during the summer, but those guys, they just choose to find a place to stay. Like they're not enrolled in classes. It's just really voluntary that they get to be there. But when our freshmen come in, we do put them through very much a developmental program. And it starts with, this is all the little details of what our team training ideals need to be. How we line up, how we dress, how we execute every stretch in a warm-up line, how we finish every stretch in a warm-up line or every run. And it's basically a regression of every single movement that they're going to see in our program. That's something that when I was a graduate assistant and an intern at TCU, that's something that Zach Dakin, I thought, did really, really good job of with his baseball program. His whole Movement Over Max's book is very similar to what our football developmental program looks like at the beginning, but maybe more tailored towards football versus baseball. And so early on, like we're gonna bring him in and we're gonna teach him the basics on how to do a body weight squat. We're gonna teach him on the regressed versions of squatting, hinging, lunging, rows, push-ups, basically, just a regression of every movement that you're going to do in the weight room. From a ballistic standpoint, it's going to be the basics on jumping and landing. And a lot of that is just positional ISOs, just being able to hold an athletic stance, understanding the terminology that we're going to use, how to balance on one limb. We'll do a regression of a bear crawl. It's just like a bear hold where they're holding and then doing a single limb hold. Just various different versions of that. But we're also piecing in all of our sprint development. So starting position, how to take off, what the body posture needs to look like. And we're doing that during fall camp, but dosed in a very, very, very quick, I don't really want to say microdose, but I guess that kind of is it. It's just a little bit of dose every day. So they're hearing the same things 3 or 4 times a week, depending on how many times we train.
Let me ask you this before you keep going. Would you rather have high school coaches only do those things and work on those things with their kids in high school? Or would you rather them, progress in the front squat, get them really good at that, get them into some back squats, get them cleaning in high school, and then they come to you and they have to take a step back? Which would you prefer? Or where do you think high school strength and conditioning should end up so it's a smoother transition to you?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that we're getting athletes that respect the fact that when they come to a college program, things are going to be different. I think it's more important that hey, I'm in a new offense. I've got to forget the way that my coaches taught me how to do, my first step. Terminology is going to be different. It might be the same movement, but you're just learning something different. So I don't really think it necessarily matters whether an athlete is extremely advanced in the weight room or not. But there are probably more often than not guys that just have those ingrained movement patterns that are kind of dysfunctional, that we do try to teach them the way that I think is the better way to do it. That could be guys used to doing like a low bar powerlifting, super wide stance squat with his toes out, almost as if he was doing a box squat. Whereas hey, when we're doing a hands-free front squat, I want you to be more narrower. I want to see what your squat looks like, in a more athletic position versus just going for maximum weight on the bar, if that makes sense.
Right. I'm with you. I think maturity is the biggest thing. I don't care if you can teach them how to clean and back squat and front squat. If you're in high school and you're a high school coach and you can teach the kids maturity to be like, okay, when you go to the next level, it might be a little different. Or they may not wide bar box back squat, but as long as you're coachable and you listen to them and say yes or no, sir, when they say we're going to do, hands-free front squat instead, I can work with that kid all day. Yep. It's the kid who said, I squatted 600 in high school and doesn't want to change his ways. Okay, those are the kids that we struggle with. And as a high school coach or strength coach, hopefully you're teaching kids to be mature and responsible and respectful and open to changes. Like you said, I love the analogy of you may go to a college and it's a different offense than the one you ran in high school.
No doubt.
You still need to be mature and responsible and learn a new system in order to be able to play in that system sooner.
And what I tell the freshmen, what I told them this year, a few weeks ago, was when you come into a new environment, you're in a new setting, you're meeting new people. This is probably one of the most stressful times of your life. If I just throw you in and expect you to do everything that the other guys are doing, then your stress is just going to raise even more because of just the general load on your body. So you're going to be more likely to get sick and miss time. You're going to be more likely to get injured and miss time. So I tell them, guys, just trust me for the first, really 5 weeks. I want you to learn everything that exactly the way that we're going to do it. And that's going to build your foundation. And it's not like now, we're in almost October. We're not training like a developmental athlete anymore. Like last night, our guys did a relatively heavy RDL. They were doing some relatively heavy step ups. They're doing full range of motion chin-ups. They're doing the presses the way that we want them to. They're regressed movements, but that doesn't mean that the intent isn't there. That doesn't also mean that it's not challenging for them. There's an appropriate way to make it challenging, while also, they're just doing things that are new to them, I guess.
I'm with you. I scale back the lifting stuff. At least, granted, I get them in July, right? So I get them for that month before camp starts, but for that month and then the month of August, so basically 8 weeks, we're doing a block zero, and it doesn't matter if you went to IMG Academy, and I say like one of my assistants is from there. They have 3 weight rooms. Each one has 24 racks. I know they lifted there, but you know what? The biggest thing for you is the stress, like you talked about, the new system, new environment, and more important, at least in the summer for me, is getting running volume up to speed, because a lot of high school kids have, if they played a spring sport, great, but they probably picked an easy sport like track and field, especially some of my throwers. Right? So they didn't have the running volume that they needed. And then, graduation, had a great last senior summer, and they didn't put enough running in that I think they need to get ready for camp. So I always say, hey, the most important thing is make sure you get your running volume up. That's the biggest adjustment going into college, in my opinion. The lifting stuff, we can always fix that later, right? We can go slower. We can get that right. Now, I know how I do things here for in season for our young guys, but I'm sure you're going to try and get some strength in them during this time of year, because it really is one of the longest stretches of the season where you can actually focus on strength and get stronger. So hear about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we really just finished up our first basically 4 or 5 weeks with them was just kind of building volume, starting very low volume in the first couple of weeks of practice, building volume of really, really quality movement. And then after that, we kind of do like an adjusted APRE system. And this is something that I took from the high school coach that I worked under in 2016 as an intern. Instead of doing like rep maxes on every exercise week in and week out, we basically worked them up to a 5 to 8 rep max. But we also use reps in reserve and just say like, hey, I want you to leave 1 or 2 reps in the tank, and me or one of my graduate assistants are seeing that set. So that we can say like, okay, this guy did 6. He definitely could have done 8. That's the number that we record. And then each week we just kind of go up, 5 pounds, or we go up adjusted. And we basically follow that same scheme for our squats and for our presses over the first, for the next 4 weeks. And so next week will be kind of our last week where we actually do a true, like, all right, we're going to find a 5 rep max. And then that'll kind of set the tone for the back half of our in-season program for our developmental guys. I should also mention that most of our guys redshirt. I think we probably have 2, maybe 3 players this year that won't redshirt. So that means we got 39 guys that are redshirting. That's probably quite a bit different than a lot of programs do. It's just kind of the way that we do things.
And then go ahead of time, or do you take advantage of the 4 games that they play before they redshirt?
Say that one more time.
So for us, we know that they can play in 4 games.
Right.
And that they're going to burn the red shirt. So we will, save them and use them periodically. Like we'll bring somebody and say, hey, we want to save them for the back half of the year for special teams, or we're going to use this guy early in special teams. So we're kind of being strategic about it a little bit, but are you telling kids ahead of time coming into this year, you are going to redshirt. So just get ready to grind, get ready to get after it.
Yeah. And we probably don't quite have the depth that some other programs do. But there are like the ones that I mentioned, like we know that they're not going to redshirt. There might be 1 or 2 other ones that are exactly like you said, they're going to get some playing time. But I'm okay if they kind of go into a game, you're like, man, I'm kind of still sore from that Thursday lift, and really the way that we have it set up on Sundays, the day after the game, they're going to do like a heavy posterior chain movement. And for us, like our main lift is going to be the RDL on Tuesday. That's kind of our highest intensity practice day. And so my philosophy is like, I want that to be like our heavier grinding day in the weight room. So that's going to be our heavier squat day. And then Thursday is more of an upper body day, for those developmental guys. So that's going to be bench press, and more upper body accessories on that Thursday as well. So those guys that end up, that they're going to dress on Saturday, they won't do the end of the week competition that the rest of our red shirts will do. So they're not going into the game like they're smoked, exhausted. It's kind of a Sunday day after game, kind of a medium day, I guess. Tuesday kind of high, and then Thursday a little bit lower. And so we're still pushing and developing strength through the season for sure. While also like everything, the foundation is I want these guys to move well, understand how to move, so that when they get into the spring, we can put them in with their upperclassmen. They still might do some regressions based on like what the full team needs. It might do something different than other guys in the room, but they can do the main program and understand the standards and expectations of the off season.
You'll love this one. I had a freshman last year. So we do pretty similar. We lift Sunday, either Sunday, Monday, or our freshmen lift on Sunday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on class schedule. And then our non-travel goes Friday morning. We started getting to the point where, we had some guys that were dressing, but they weren't ever going to play, backup linemen, things like that. So the O-line coach sends them down and says, go lift on Friday and then go to your game on Saturday. And, kid comes in, coach, I don't know if I could watch. I'm dressing tomorrow. It's a big game. And I'm like, buddy, you are the backup on PAT field goal. Like, what get in? I love you, but you ain't good. No, he got in. Somebody got hurt. He had to go in there. He's like, coach, I was so nervous. I didn't know if I could do it. And I'm like, dude, you blocked him. You were fine. It's not a big deal. You can go a little bit sore. And I just thought it was so like, you're going to be fine here. Similar setup. So talk to us about the freshman challenge there. What does that look like? What does that consist of?
Yeah.
Is that something you did as a player?
Yeah, it's not really. I remember, when I played, I did redshirt. And so there's still some things that we do that are kind of a legacy thing that I pulled in from when I played. One of those isn't really the competitions that we do, but we'll do like a theme lift, once or twice. And our guys love that. And instead of training at 5:45 in the morning, we'll come in at nighttime. And, we'll have like a Halloween lift where they can deck out in their Halloween stuff. Whatever they want to do. We'll have like a high school night where it's like the only time they can wear their high school stuff, and guys will wear their jackets and they'll wear their rings and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of have some fun with it, But, when we're playing at home on Saturdays, on Saturday morning, we have our freshman, we call it the Red Dog Challenge. The reason it's Red Dog because it's the guys that are red shirts. But if you Google a red dog, it's actually what a baby bison is, because when a bison is born, it's kind of got this red coat look to it.
Okay.
So I call it the Red Dog Challenge. And they're grouped in teams that they basically selected early in the season. So this year we have six teams. And they're competing almost every single day in those 6 teams. And then on Saturday morning of home games, we have basically just, a really tough, challenging team challenge where it requires strategy. It requires a lot of grit, requires really good teamwork. And, a lot of the challenges I've kind of developed over time. Some I stole from a guy named Steve Gephardt, who was the basketball strength coach when I was at TCU. He's at Maryland now. He did like kind of off-season challenges with that basketball program. There's one called the Widowmaker that we stole from him there, that now just about every athlete here at some point will do the Widowmaker. And it's really simple. It's just a plate push across the football field, a backwards sled drag, or just like a backwards weight drag across the football field. And then some type of carry. So a push-pull carry where you run across the field with it, and then you sprint back, run across the field, sprint back, run across the field, sprint back to finish. And it's like 90 seconds to 2 minutes of work. But the feeling that you have when you're done is unlike maybe anything else you can imagine. So, I mean, it's kind of just a tradition around here now that our Red Dogs, our freshmen, are going to do the Widowmaker. Even like probably their first week on campus, guys are talking to them about, man, you guys are going to do a lot of front squats in the developmental program. You guys are going to do the Widowmaker. And it's always kind of like, it kind of builds some pride, I guess, once they've completed it. So we had our first home game 2 Thursdays ago. And so we got up and did that first thing in the morning. This Saturday, we'll do another challenge. We've got kind of a 1.5 mile loop that wraps around our athletic facilities. And so they'll be in their teams, and they're going to carry a trap bar as far as they can until their grip gives out. They'll set it down and their second guy gets in. And so it's basically just a campus run with a trap bar to see who can do the 1.5 mile loop the fastest. We've got one where we have like these 2x12s that we use for chest supported rows in the weight room. And they've got to figure out a way to get one of their teammates on the board while 4 other guys carry the board like a stretcher and carry him around the field. And it's really all about like team camaraderie. Can they work together? When they fail on a challenge, or if they really suck at a challenge, like how do they respond to it? I realize that doesn't necessarily make them a better football player, but it does build some unity. it builds some pride and builds some identity in who we are. And our, we've done it now for 5 years, and knowing that guys can look back and kind of have fond memories of how they competed in those freshman challenges, to me, it's worth every penny. It's worth the time investment. It's worth the guys that struggle and fail and realize that, like, man, this is just hard, and I think there is some value in just kind of doing hard things together, and building unity, building a team.
In today's day and age where it's feed the cats and less is more and always trying to find the most efficient way, there's still value in just doing some hard things, do hard things, And I do think it's part of our job as strength coaches is to create an environment and memories that are going to last a lifetime. You're going to remember the big games, you're going to remember the big plays, but you're going to remember the really hard workouts and challenges too. You're not going to remember the daily grind, the 3x8 at 70%. You're not going to remember that, but you're going to remember doing whittle,
Exactly. Yeah.
And I love the fact that you can go back and the upperclassmen can come down and tell the freshmen, like, well, you better be ready for those. You better bring your A game up those. I love that.
I think it says something that, all of our players know that, our first home game, the freshmen are doing the Widowmaker. When you have upperclassmen that show up to those Saturday morning workouts,
I was going to ask if
just to see how the freshmen in their position group compete. So this Saturday, we might have our competition at 10. And so they might have morning meetings or something. And like the upperclassmen want to see who the dogs in their group are, and it exposes guys that are, just maybe hanging around for the wrong reasons. Like there's a lot of people that come to college to play football because that's the expectation that their parents had on them, is that you've got to make a college football team. But they don't really love it. They don't love the team. They don't love football. They've lost the passion. And so they don't really want to do those workouts, and it shows. And so they've got to know that to be on this team, at least there might be a team for them, but to be on this team, you've got to sacrifice, and you've got to sacrifice for the guys around you.
I love that. That's a good segue too here. So my next question was, do you run into either resistance or kids that have an ego coming in from high school, maybe because they have a little bit more background than somebody else, or athletic ability wise, they're better than, the rest of the developmental group that's coming in? How do you deal with those kids? How do you keep them engaged and get them bought into what you're trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you didn't recruit those kids, but every once in a while you end up, shooting down one of those. So,
yeah.
So what do you do?
Fortunately, like you alluded to, I think our coaches do a really good job of making really good calls culture wise on who we recruit, and ultimately who we decide to bring in. There's a lot of kind of checks and balances before these guys even get on campus that a guy might have signed with us, but because they can't figure out how to basically be accountable before they even get on campus. He was a really good player, but he didn't get his medical forms filled out. We tried to hold his hand through all this kind of stuff, so he's not going to be here. Or all those, a lot of the negatives are weeded out. But for the ones that do kind of have that sense of entitlement, I guess.
It not even be negative. They may just be frustrated. They want to go faster than you're letting them go. How do you help that kid?
Yeah. Man, to be honest with you, like I think that is the way that we're gonna do it. Like that's just is. I'm sorry I don't have a great answer, but again, at this time, like we've kind of done it for 5 years. Early on, we probably had guys that kind of scratched their head at it. But I mean, the best player on our team right now, and the other guys that are in his class, they went through that. They went, I mean, unless they were one of the two that are transfers. So I think everybody just realizes that like that is part of the process of who you are and who you're going to be as a player here. And even if they do have those hard feelings, they might talk about it in the locker room, but it surely doesn't come to light when we're training. And if it does, then I'm just going to have a conversation with them that like, look at Cole Keyline, look at Braden Jay, look at Ty Duggar. These are some of the cream of the crop of this program. They went through that same workout that you did. And nobody's bigger than the team. Nobody's bigger than this workout. This is the process. This is what it takes. And so, I mean, that's That's the way that I would talk about it. That's the way their position coach would talk about it. That's the way our head coach would talk about it. And so I think when everybody in the organization is hearing that over and over and over again, it does do a decent job of snuffing out the entitlement, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you do anything towards the end of the season or the end of the fall, right? So you're getting ready to transition to the off season, probably transition to winter workouts really. So they're going to go home for a little bit, come back on campus. And then when they come back on campus, they'll be integrated into the main group. You'll probably have your main group, probably have some advanced guys, and you might have some guys who are, they need something a little different. Main group, but with modifications. Do you do anything to kind of announce like, hey, you made it through a semester? Here's your graduation. Here's your mark of transition. Like we're moving you up to the main group. Or is it just kind of like, hey, we trained through the season, and when you come back, you're with everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because there's probably more that I could do. I don't do anything that's just like a graduation day. But like I did allude to, like we compete throughout the semester in those Bison game teams. And that's not just our physical challenges in the weight room. We tie in academics, we tie in, a number of different things to making sure the guys are doing the things that it takes to be successful as they go into the off season. So that's one thing, is that like, in their competition teams, there will be like a winning team. And so they kind of get put on a pedestal and they might get some swag, some additional swag like gear or something that nobody else gets. So that's kind of how we'll finish up. Honestly, I think a lot about the academics, side too. And obviously towards the end of the year, like there's going to be dead week, there's going to be finals week. Our guys will have a fall break and all the different academic stuff that we've got to consider. So I'm a little bit hesitant to just like do a full on max right before dead week and all that, again, because of the stress response and all that. But we will have a time towards the end of the year where dudes are chomping at the bit to see like, all right, in high school, I squatted 475 where I'm at now. So we will kind of have a max time for bench press and squat. We don't max anything besides those two. And it's really just, those guys are probably going to do it when they go home with dad at the gym anyway. So we might as well make sure they can, do it well. And it gives us numbers to train off of in the off season. So that's kind of how we finish the semester.
Yeah. I'm just thinking other than, taking a knee at the end of practice or a team meeting, I don't get the opportunity to get everybody in the room together, and that's the time when I want to acknowledge those young guys that have been kind of grinding, sticking in when no one else is here, doing the things behind the scenes. But this conversation has made me think about like, how do I let the rest of the team know how successful that this group has been and highlight and pump up some of those kids. So it's making me go back and rethink like, okay, when we get to the end of the semester, maybe before we leave for winter break, when we do our team meeting, we talk about, winter packets and things like that. Maybe that's when I'm going to highlight, some of the top guys in that early group. And
I just made a note of that.
They're coming for you, and they're joining the main group for winter workouts, and they're ready to come take, I'll do some sort of promo video. We'll do it up right. Maybe I'll get some.
Yeah, we'll compare notes to them this evening because I'm gonna come up with something now.
I'll get my media team to come in. We'll get some videos and we'll flip it off. And these guys are like first spot. It'll be great. So we'll do that. All right, let's wrap it up here. Let's get one more good question. And so, if you had to give those, and my audience is strength coaches, but it's also those high school coaches that are in charge of everything. They might be the offensive coordinator. They might be in charge of scheduling the buses, getting the orange slices cut for halftime. And they want to be the strength coach as well, but they don't have the background. They don't have the time to put into it the way that we have. What are the best pieces of advice you can give them in terms of putting the program together and trying to do the right thing for their kids?
Make the time in the week to train consistently. Even when it feels like you don't have time, there's a way to make time. You just got to be creative. And then don't overcomplicate the training. If you can keep the consistency, training twice, 3 times a week, that will reap results over time instead of just trying to get your guys as strong as possible, as fast as possible. if you take a 14-year-old and train them 3 days a week, every time they're in season, they will get bigger, they will get faster, they will get stronger. As long as there's some form of progressive overload, obviously, you don't necessarily have to make the 14-year-old starter the strongest he can be in his first year. He's already a stud. Like, continue to build him up slowly, because then he'll be more resilient, and he'll be even better, instead of just trying to microwave him early on.
I'm with you 100%. I've talked to a handful of coaches here, and I give them the same advice. You can sneak a lot of stuff into your warm up, right? Whether it's speed work, DSO work, jump training. You can get some of those, I hate microdose too, but you can microdose some of that stuff in your warm up throughout the week. But then if you do that, all you have to do after practice is probably 3 exercises, push, pull, hinge, and then flip it in the other day of the week, twice a week. And if you can't get to a weight room, right, the transition is too much, or the time of the day is too, you can still get away with doing a ton of body weight stuff. ISO holds, push-ups, do those, and just the consistency of it, especially in season, is huge. I'm with you on that. I think the other thing that we talked about earlier, and I love this, I'm glad we have this conversation, is continue to teach kids how to be responsible and how to be mature. And it's a lot harder. We get the easy part, right? The high school coaches have done the hard part when they were 14 or 15, and they didn't even know how to spell that word, so hopefully by the time they come to us, they're a little bit more mature, but you can teach kids how to listen, to respect, and then they're going to get a lot further in life if they do that. Once the high school coaches that are out there, just right there, it's not easy. So you keep teaching those lessons. I promise you it pays off. All the high school coaches listen to this. It does pay dividends. They're doing great work out there. So, Coach, great first episode. Fired up about it. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Take it easy.
Will do. Thanks, buddy.
All right. See you guys on the next one.
Will do. Thanks, buddy.